philosophical movies, that is, movies that lean heavily on philosophical concepts, seem to always create split opinion. And when I say that, obviously we're not going to use 2001: A Space Odyssey because it came out so long ago and by such a highly held filmmaker that that one is very well loved. However, let's think about some philosophical movies that have come out in recent history that most of have a very mixed bag. The Matrix 2 and 3. The first one was loved. 2 and 3, very split. Prometheus. Cloud Atlas, even Donnie Darko has received split reviews. Sucker Punch and AI Artificial Intelligence from Spielberg. So, what are your thoughts on these movies? They all center on philosophy.
Well, I'm going to go right off the bat. The biggest hit that I can see to these movie types is the Matrix series is the perfect example of this. Is like Prometheus and the first Matrix kind of fit into this. Prometheus was pretty well received overall.
It was kind of split. A lot of people were really upset with Prometheus and the direction it took.
I know you're an IMDb guy, but like with Rotten Tomatoes, you're looking at, I believe it was in the 80s, high 70s.
It's got a 7.0 exactly, which is pretty low for this quality of movie.
My point is when you look at those two movies, they're philosophical movies that aren't necessarily, like the philosophy is woven into the story.
Right.
But it's not necessarily a philosophical movie. Like the original Matrix, yeah, you could say it's strongly based off Plato's The Cave,
yeah.
But it wasn't written to tell you Plato's The Cave.
Right.
And those movies that are philosophically woven but not designed to tell that necessarily story are the ones that are successful. Whereas Matrix 2, Matrix 3, these are movies that were designed to continue that philosophical success, and because they were philosophically driven,
right,
fall flat on their face.
Well, I think the Matrix 2 and 3, the big philosophical difference is its elements of philosophy in each movie, whereas the first Matrix, it's really that one idea. Plato's The Cave. Like, you're opening your eyes to a new world. What if none of this is real? Matrix 2 has the Merovingian, which raises a whole nother aspect of philosophy, but it's not the entire story. It's a small element of the story. The Matrix 3 is the train station, another new reality, another, like, are there rules to even the actual reality? And again, there are smaller philosophical elements within the story, whereas the first Matrix was simplified. It was one big element for the whole movie. 2 and 3 crams a lot of philosophy into each movie. Like The Architect is a good example. Tons of philosophy in that one scene. The cycles of the one, resetting Zion. That makes the movie vastly more complicated.
It's almost like the success of the first one makes it pretentious, and they then try too hard because they accidentally stepped into a plane that was well received,
right? And
they just were like, oh, well, now we operate on this plane now.
I think what happened is the first Matrix, they were forced to keep it relatively simple because they had to teach the viewer about the world. And in the other two movies, the world was already created, so they were free to go into the really deep shit that they wanted to. But at the
same point, in the second and third one, they really end up, in a lot of aspects, rewriting the world. Because the things that you become to know is true, they start warping.
Well, that's the whole
point
of the Matrix. That's the whole point. They're trying to show you that even reality is ever changing.
But what I'm saying is without that foundation
right.
that they created in the first one, like, because the first one you look at as they're building it, that's it. This is my base.
Right.
And from this base, I can now travel in this way or that way,
right.
But this is my base. But now you're taking a movie and you're trying to explain a higher level of thinking, but at the same point, you're eroding the base.
Well,
and that makes more windows for things to be lost.
Let's look at Prometheus, because Prometheus is similar, like you said, to the first Matrix, because it's very based on one overarching philosophy. Why do we as humans exist? It is about finding the creator. That's the whole point. The whole point is to confront the creators and find out our purpose.
That's what saves the movie, because when you look at the acting...
Well, I mean, the thing about Prometheus is, it compared to the first Matrix was one of the top 250 movies ever on IMDb.
Won't argue.
Over an 8. Okay? Prometheus, 7 out of 10.
It wasn't that funny.
Prometheus's perception, although it's similar philosophically to the first Matrix, Prometheus is seen as nowhere near the quality. Why is that?
I think Prometheus had a good story. It does pose a lot of questions. They did a great job of leaving it open-ended. I think what really hurts it, though, is the characters are poorly written.
Some of them.
And they're poorly acted in some regards as well. And at the end, the ending really kind of gets me, too, because the woman who survives, you understand her storyline and why she's being driven. But on top of her being a piss-poor actress...
Jesus, you are really not into her acting.
The two bigger characters, her and her husband, who dies fairly quickly, are just poorly acted. I mean, he was the stereotypical douchebag jock, even though he's a scientist.
Is it? I don't think it's acted. I think it's written. And the way the characters are written.
It didn't translate either.
Right.
Though.
Okay.
I mean, it's a combination.
So
I concur. But even then, like the way she ends the movie, like the way she survives, escaping the engineer, and then the way the ship falls, it crushes the other lady, but then just falls the perfect way for her to survive.
But you're getting lost in logistics.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what hurts the movie.
So you don't think the philosophy hurts the movie? You think other parts of the movie
is lost
because of the events of the story. I think another thing that hurts Prometheus is expectations of the franchise. A lot of people, because Ridley Scott, this is the first time he came back to Alien since the first Alien. And everyone wanted what it looks like Alien Covenant is about to be. They wanted a revisit of the horror of the scary Lost in Space movie where everyone is killed. Prometheus gave us a freaking deep Matrix-style philosophy trek where we very minimally even see the xenomorph. So I think a big part of it was expectation.
Who would think that the worst part of Prometheus, outside of the shitty acting, well, what probably hurt it the most,
Christ,
is that Prometheus, from the Alien franchise, managed to alienate its fan base.
What did you think about the acting in Prometheus, though?
I thought it was top notch. The gentleman just wooed me with his exuberance.
Another really interesting one to look at, Donnie Darko. Donnie Darko is a cult film. It has a fan base of people who will die for it. But it absolutely does. I got a scoff from my...
We can attest.
I have met many people who have a boner for that movie.
Not only that, because when it came
and I love Jake Gyllenhaal, but I don't see it, okay?
And that, not only with that, but it was also a movement. Because when that movie comes out, I mean, we were in high school.
Yeah.
And that was a cultural push.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Oh, my God. Were the twihards fucking thumping that goddamn movie. I almost ended a couple friendships just... Not because it was a bad movie.
Seriously, this nail polish brings me back to Donnie Darko.
The obsession level was absurd.
Okay, so rant over. Donnie Darko is a heavily philosophical movie. It has a lot to do with the cycle of events. There's a little time travel going on. There's a weird, is he schizophrenic duality with Frank the Rabbit. So it really comes down to, why do some people hate this film and why do other people fucking love this film? Why is it so split? Is it the philosophy? Is it the tone? What is going on?
I really think in a lot of levels, I think the worst part for Donnie Darko is it's a not bad story, but I think what turns off people is that counterculture that thinks that by pounding this movie home, that it makes them different and stand out, almost kind of like like punk rock was, and when it first started in like the 80s, is it wasn't that great a music, but you love it because it was your opportunity to rage against the system,
right?
And like by following this movie, it's like you trying to be the counterculture in the movie spectrum.
Okay, so as we talk through this list of philosophical movies, the idea behind the video was, does a lot of philosophy create split opinions? But what we're finding out when we discuss these movies is it seems like there are different elements within each of them. So the underlying question is, are these elements coming from the philosophical way they are written, or is it simply a false correlation where they all just happen to be philosophical and also slightly weak? Or is it coming from the philosophy writing?
You know, when you think about it, like with the rabbit, it is more superficial. Because it almost seems like the imagery is so flashy and cheap.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a big fan of that direction of it, but I understand the philosophy they're trying to use with it.
Like, it seems like with the schizophrenic feel to it, that they're trying to be edgy as to push the storyline and to push their agenda. And it's like, when you get edgy in that regard, it almost feels more like you're flashy, and that falsifies and defeats the story you're trying to tell.
So apply that to the other movies, Prometheus and the two Matrix movies and Sucker Punch and Artificial Intelligence. Is the philosophical writing leading to these downfalls? Because we know the writing is an issue in Prometheus with the characters. Is that because there's too much focus on philosophy? And that's the thing, is I think the
overall story arc of Prometheus is good.
Right.
Like I said, I think it's poor script writing, poor acting that defeats that film in the end. The ending could have been a little bit better. I mean, obviously she has to survive.
Yeah.
But maybe not through such dumb chance. Like, the moment the engineer gets her, she just magically thinks, oh, open the door, boom, now Hugh's got you, I'm out. Like,
so, yeah.
It's just too easy.
I think the common element is that there is so much focus on this deep, deep, deep meaning behind everything that they leave all of these other more surface level issues open. Donnie Darko, you see that. Prometheus with the characters. The two Matrix movies with cramming too much plot and exposition.
What I will say, though, when you go with Prometheus and with the Matrix, I think you hit the point, is those two movies took a singular question and stuck to that question, and I think that's what allows those philosophical views to carry those movies and be successful, whereas like Donnie Darko tries to hit on a couple different things, and you're trying too hard to do too much.
I agree, and I think you lose sight of the more typical things like character development.
Exactly.
Basic
because
things.
At the end of the day, like with Prometheus, we both know, I've just complained a lot about it, but at the end of the day, that movie did make me think. I didn't hate myself for watching it.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the thoughts it made me. I just didn't like certain aspects of it.
Okay, that's fair. So what do you guys think? Is being primarily a philosophical movie a curse for split reception? This is a deep channel. I think you should hit the subscribe button.
And while you do that, I'm going to make myself a cup of chamomile and start a fire, so me and Derek can discuss further the meaning of Plato's The Cave.
We actually live in this basement.
Charles, to the fireplace.
7 out of 10.
That's the only source he has.
I hate Rotten Tomatoes. Don't even get me started with their shit rating system.
IMDb, Tobey Maguire is best friends with Leonardo.
The point of Prometheus.
Me and IMDb are going to sit down and have lunch tonight. It's going to be a nice brisket.